And so let's jump right into why we are here, building MVPs that work, best practices from real experience. And today we have like a special guest on this call who is going to be, taking us through this. And when I had a conversation with him, I gave him the flexibility of choosing what topic he wanted. And he just said that MVP was something that works for him. And like, why not? Let's have him on board so he can speak to everyone and, share in his wealth of knowledge with us. So Abayomi Ayodele is an experienced product manager with 5+ years of building and launching digital products across mobility, fintech, e-commerce, and crowdfunding. He has led teams through the full product lifecycle from idea to MVP to market launch, delivering solutions like travel, a ride-sharing platform, Zilia Finance, My Shop Launcher, and he's also passionate about solving real problems. Abayomi blends strategy, storytelling, and technology to create products that drives impact and growth. And so, hi Abayomi, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Abimbola.
Good to have you on the call. So I'm going to stop sharing now so you have the floor and you can take us through this journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uh, Good evening, everyone. Let me just say my. Okay, I think my screen is being shared now. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Abimola. Great. Well done for the job, like the work you're doing at Product Dive. I'm also a Product Dive alumni, and if there's still many courses I want to take, so I don't even think I'm done with like learning. So yeah, thank you. Hi everyone. So I'm talking about like building MVPs that work, and honestly, it's like a no fluff presentation. I wish I even had like more slides to really show us diagrams, case studies, and whatnot. But I'll try my best to, again for some level of privacy due to the type of project I got on in the past, I may not have the luxury to, display like company work, but I'll speak about it. I can speak on it. So this is how I'll take us on this journey. We'll touch on the basics, right? We all most likely know the basics, but the thing I always say is reinforced learning or reinforced knowledge is what you can apply, not the new one or not the shiny one you just got, right? So if you already have an idea, let's just reinforce it. And then I'll take you through like the MVP journey, because typically for the past couple of years, I've actually built quite a number of MVPs. So I truly understand what it is to build an MVP, and then key takeaways. So, and then we can discuss from there. Um, yeah, housekeeping. Yeah, so quick touch on basics MVP. And I know that there are several definitions, if we're to open the floor now and ask for definitions, we'll probably have different ways of describing it, but there'll be similar like words or terms that we are all using. I'd just like to break it down this way. MVP is that minimum version or thing that you want to use to validate your hypothesis. So this means that there has to be an hypothesis, right? What are your what are your assumptions? What have you found in the market? Like they always say, there's a gap in the market. What is that gap? What is your reason for the gap? And why? So you draft out your hypothesis, and what is the minimum version of what my solution can be that would validate this hypothesis. So you don't want to overbuild, right? And it just has to be functional enough. It can be low quality, but it just has to be functional enough. It might break, but doesn't have to be broken so much that it is not functional, because it's in the functionality that you can get feedback from users. If you put a product in front of 100, like a focus group of 50, and they don't even get to go from onboarding to test, assuming it's a consumer facing product, and they don't go from successfully from onboarding to maybe taking an action in the core like product feature, then I don't think you've built an MVP, because you can't validate any hypothesis with that. Well, except you want to validate your onboarding flow. So again, a lot of things are contextual, right? So it's hypothesis driven, number one. And I just wrote something down here. Does this help validate our hypothesis? If not, cut it. So your MVP has to be really like slim. It has to be really focused on validating hypotheses. And there's some notes I wrote here. So for example, I said B2B SaaS is different from consumer mobile, right? And I'm sure I'll get into that. And so we would understand. So when you think of an MVP, don't think of a full product. You could be building an MVP for your onboarding flow of an existing product, right? And you could be building an entirely new product. So it just depends. One more slide to just talk about MVP. So let's imagine an internship focused hiring platform. So there's Jobberman, there's Indeed, there's Glassdoor, and the likes, right? But you want one that is solely focused on internships, right? Internship opportunities, students, and maybe fresh entry level and graduates who are in their service year. You want them to come to a platform where they can just find the right job for them that is not asking for 10 years experience in 10, right? That type of product. And I've painted a picture. I hope I've successfully painted that picture. Your MVP literally should be easy enough to onboard the students or the companies, right, that are also seeking to hire, and get enough information, just enough to talk about the company and also talk about the interns, the potential, the candidates for that role. And I'll just go straight to the case in point. If anyone knows about the um, internship Google form or idea. I don't know if they have an official name for it, but Ask Sultan and Tunde Onokoye on Twitter have been doing a lot of PR on it. Of course, it seems more from a goodwill NGO perspective, where they're not necessarily trying to make money, but what they're actually doing is building an MVP. If they're going to lay artificial intelligence on it, if it's going to be powered by some some other technology, they've already gotten their hypothesis validated. Now, internally, I'm not privy to whatever their hypothesis must have been, right? But what they are doing already is validating the hypothesis. If they truly want to build, a product that doesn't involve going to a Google form, filling your details, and all of that, then Tejade Inka, she's also a product manager, and she's building something called Scout API. It's a it's a platform for sourcing remote jobs across, for Africans, right? So it's solely focused on, most of these remote opportunities, they tell you they want you to be in their country or in their region. So she's building one that, you know, um, it's strictly for Africans. And she's built an MVP. She used the no code tool, and she also has Google Form embedded and some other things. You can check this out, right? These are very classic cases of MVP. And I think that that's the way we should look at it. I'll get into mistakes, I think, towards the end of the slide. So you truly know why I'm like doubling down on these very simple fundamentals. So what's your role? Your role honestly is going to be wearing multiple hats. So you'll be product manager, right? Overarching, vision, strategy, and you'll be product owner. Product owner is execution. You're on Jira, you're writing. Mind you, there might not be an engineering manager. There would be someone building, right? A developer, but it might not be an engineering manager. So it's pretty much a small team, lean startup. And what you're trying to do is wear multiple hats to ensure that you don't slow the progress. Because building an MVP, if you're a large team, you may not necessarily be fast. The reason is you need to steer the ship, and you can't have more than one captain. Everyone has to work on a certain task, right? And if everyone is trying to say this is what they think and this is the way to go about building it, you're going to spend a lot of time agreeing before you actually build. So you'd have spent 3 months trying to agree on what to build before you build, which will take longer for sure, because the solution would definitely be complicated if it already takes 3 months to align. So just imagine, just be prepared for, and if any PME has experienced such, I'm sure you'd be nodding your head in agreement that building MVPs really means wearing all the hats: product manager, product owner, business operations. You're thinking about cost. So is Amazon the way to go? Should I use Digital Ocean? Should I use other, cloud service providers and things like that? And that's just an example. So yeah, it's quite tasking. Now I thought to put this slide in because it's very important to note that if you're building an MVP in different environments, your experience will be different. Your What is expected of you, the expectations would also be different. So imagine Lafarge. I would consider Lafarge a legacy company, or let's say Dangote. Legacy doesn't necessarily mean archaic or not technology focused, but they've existed across generations. They existed before the Y2K era. They existed when buying a SIM in Nigeria. I mean, using this market, right? But buying a SIM was what, 2000 naira, 10K, right? They've existed when you call, it wasn't per second billing, right? So they pretty much operate a certain way. Now, if they want you to build an MVP for, if they want you to test some hypothesis, right, which would mean building an MVP, just bear in mind this common challenge, which will be bureaucracy. So you're not going to get a lot of things approved quickly. It's as simple as, oh, which we want to pay, want to add our card on Amazon, or we want to pay for this, third party API service. You're not just going to get that quickly. You're probably going to be asked to provide like three alternatives and, have like a defense for which is better, write a justification. Those types of things might bore you because you are high energy. You want to just get things done. Your sprints, your sprints is, you even splitted your sprints to 1 week instead of two because you want to achieve so much and review quickly. You're going to start most likely getting frustrated. So this is a way to, kind of warm you up and say, be ready for such challenges, right? But the advantage is that they are customers already. You can go back to the very first customer that bought a glow sim. If the person is alive, if the person, has a, if someone from the person's family still is around, you want to just get anything from them, right? Because they definitely have value to share, like value to give and tangible information. You want to talk about the first set of people that used your point of sales machine in Idumota, the first set of traders. You want to understand why they took that chance, right? And what it is. So you want to use that as a yardstick to, because they are familiar with the product. Now they can share openly what they think about, your idea, that the MVP you want to, build. Maybe it's a new feature to that product they currently use. So you already have customers, and that's a good thing. So imagine you're now building a new feature imagine your MVP is a new feature in an existing product. So say, Kuda business, right? You want to build a new feature. You want to test out an hypothesis that business owners don't like to type, you know, um, the beneficiary account number and the name every single time. So you want to test out repeat transfers and you want to see what that flow is like. Just that kind of case. I know it exists already, right? Maybe not on Kuda Business, but if it does, I don't really use Kuda Business. But do we get that picture? You want to test something like that. You have data already because people are already, business owners are using, such application, right? And consumers exist. And it could be B2B SaaS, right? I might be a bit focused on consumer facing, but just always know that these rules actually apply if it's B2B or B2C, if it's consumer facing or if it's an internal to their consumers, right? So as long as the entire product is not new, then the advantage is that you have data already to work with and you can probe that data. So looking at startup with funding, right? So it means they definitely have money, and that means they can spend on, fancy tools. Maybe have a much larger team, maybe even a much experienced team, right? Because they can pay, and they want you to build this MVP in 6 weeks, right? They want something that's functional enough to launch, and maybe investors are waiting demo days on the seventh week, first Monday in the seventh week, So what is a major disadvantage there is time. So you need to be fast. You need to work with I mean, if you need to get a license, if you need to get something that can make you make progress, even if the word is skipping my mind, but there are sometimes where you don't get a license, but you get a document that can pass and can get you to continue building. The word has skipped my mind, but I know I've gotten a document like that for a product one time, right? It means that you would have to be smart and think on your feet. Then lastly, an individual. We may have experienced this, your uncle, or that rich banker who wants to now build something, or distributor of the that distributor of Dangote's highest, distributor, or Lafarge's, most popular distributor, right? And the person is like, I want to do something in supply chain. I've seen the problem. That's an individual, right? There's also a unique case for that, which means you'll be working with the you'd experience a little bit more of an orga-driven type of development, and there's some constraints to that. So I hope that you find yourself in one of these four. Again, it's not exhaustive, right? But this will let you just know the types of environment you might find yourself in when building an MVP. And the reality check is engagements are relentless. You are constantly talking, you are constantly interacting. If it's not legal, it's some regulatory body or the internal team, you're constantly talking. And Eric Rice said something which I'm glad I remember to put on the deck. Eric Rice is known for building the lean startup methodology. So as product managers, I'm sure we know lean startup, lean model. Eric Rice is known for that. You may have read his book or some of his articles. And there's something I cannot forget that he said, build a list of necessary features and cut it by half. And I think he even went on to say, cut that half by another half, and maybe he kept on going and going. But this at least paints a picture. Don't, and we've heard this before, don't fall in love with your product. Remember, you are testing. You're not trying to launch a product to go to bed. You are actually racing to submit your work, right, in front of your examiner to know if you let's go back in time. Uni days, you submit your project and you want to quickly get feedback because maybe in 2 weeks' time, deadline. And it's not in 2 weeks' time that you're letting your supervisor see your first version, right? That's why they used to say, oh, bring the first chapter, bring the second chapter, or bring the third chapter, or bring your, what's it called, introduction, things like that. That's an MVP. You're racing. You're not racing to get a perfect product. You're racing to start getting feedback. You want to see the customer's perspective. You want to understand how their mind works. Then you're going back again to build. Right. So imagine you've done chapter 1 to 10 and you submit and he or she cancels everything. That's how we actually treat MVP sometimes. We think that we know everything, but we're not the market. Even though we may fall into the target market, we're still not the deciders, right? Um, so it's very important. It's very important that we don't build for ourselves. Now, team structure, tech decisions, right? You might have thought everything was quite theoretical. It's actually very practical because if you really look at it, you may not have the luxury of funding, even with startups that have funding in terms of just testing out a certain feature. They may not put their brightest engineers on that project, and they may, right? But worst case, if they don't, what do? You probably think, or they may put one who is already the brightest and he's too busy. Then they may have a mid-level or junior. So what you're trying to do is ensure that you work with them well enough not to worry about the perfect ones, right? So if if you were even the only one and you were told to build something, maybe a digital lending product for market women, even though I don't know if that's something that should be built, right? You want to think of very, very lean methodologies, like very lean model. Okay, can I get a full stack engineer? Someone that can just handle, DevOps, sort out, understands how to, deploy, or set up cloud environments, build, I mean, take advantage of boilerplate or whatnot, right? So you're not, just take advantage of whatever foundational, tools are available in terms of helping you just build fast. Think of such cases rather than thinking of perfect people. So you want to hire this, then you pay the person what, 1 million for every 2 weeks of work or 1 month of work, and you're not assured that that product would be received by the market well enough. So it's very, very important to think clean, right? And you don't need to be technical as a PM. And I know, again, I've taken a technical product management course with Product Dive. If anyone hasn't taken it, you can take that as well. And it will help you, right? It helps you understand your engineering team better. And there's actually no fluff because when they tell you they've tested, you can literally go to Postman yourself and test, right? You're not QA, but you can see that, oh, this works, right? As simple as just address find out, just anything, right? Cases are skipping my mind, but you can actually go to Postman and check. And obviously, being technical is beyond just Postman. It doesn't mean you code, but it means that when they say something, you can ask more details, you can ask for clarity. And that's why your daily stand-ups are no longer ceremonies. They cannot be. Don't meet for 15 minutes and leave that call without being clear on what would be achieved that day or that week or for that sprint, right? So remember not to work with perfect people, but actually with the right people, right mindset, and not just people that let's just ship anything. You'd have broken, flows, and you're not going to be able to validate any hypothesis. Okay, so part two. We're almost there. The MVP is literally 0 to 1. It's from one that you start to improve and iterate. So for an MVP, you want to launch fast, very, very fast. So you have the idea, someone shared the idea with you. The company you work at, you work in, want to pivot or want to try out a tech solution for their quite paper-based, archaic operations for a certain, activity they perform, and you are tasked with such responsibility. I would have loved to show you like a picture of the lean model canvas or BMC or business model canvas. It's quite a simple one. I think you can use that and again run surveys, but don't run surveys because you have a solution in mind and you want the questions to validate your solution. I know that yes, you can ask, oh, would you like for your app to be able to wake you up before your alarm, even louder than your alarm can ever wake you up. Some things, just whatever. You've already painted a picture. It's not necessarily the right approach. Like, in fact, you've not painted a picture, you've given them the product and you say they should take it, yes or no. So if they write no, you now say that they don't want the product. So run your surveys with some tactics. But then again, I'm rushing, so I wish I could show us, a typical flow for good surveys. But I believe that with this, you can use, I mean, cloud. Well, You can use any of this. I use Cloud and ChatGPT and Google. You can check Product School. You can even check templates on Product Dive community. There are a ton of them there. And you can ask questions on how best to run surveys. If anyone has a template for the industry you're in, just ensure that some things I'm saying can be, just note some things down and then go deeper with the information in terms of search. So now let's move to foundation. You've done some research. You think that's okay. We have something, right? Remember that your MVP is you want to test an hypothesis, but for different industries, MVPs vary. Some industries, the minimum bar for entry is high. Some industries, the minimum bar for entry is low in terms of the users or the markets. They already, if you want to test anything with them, there's a certain level of, you know, product that there's a certain level of completion or what's the right word? There's a certain level of feature set that you must have, right, to before you even get their attention. So that's just something to note. So understand your market first and don't think MVP is the same across industries. It's not really the same. So for foundation, I wrote something at the bottom and I'll quickly go there, right? Which is your hypothesis. So I know I've been saying that a lot, and I can just imagine that someone wants to see an example. So you can look at the framework or structure in number 3, right? Bullet point 3. But let me just read what I wrote here. We believe African diaspora in Russia will use our app weekly to find restaurants because they currently struggle to discover authentic food options. So imagine you're a student in Russia and you're trying to build this product. You want to have your hypothesis. It could be more than one statement, by the way. It doesn't have to be one. But maybe you can say this is the one that I want to test. With this, it should guide what you build. And this now gives you the minimum bar for entry. Because if you don't even build something that tests if they're going to if people are going to be able to, potential consumers are going to be able to test your app weekly or find restaurants. You can't search for restaurants. You can't, do the things you want to validate. Then you haven't built an MVP. So typical documentation would be a job to be done document, problem statement, solution statement, hypothesis, probably before even the problem, and then job to be done. Typical like documentation. Because again, you want to make it light. Don't stay on your laptop for 2, 3 days working on, your deck and you have like 10 pages for what? It's an MVP. I don't think you need that much, overload of information. At some point, it becomes repetitive. Now you're building momentum, right? You've moved past, the idea, set the foundation, stakeholders are getting aligned, you're understanding the customer pain points, everybody has agreed or at least try to agree on the hypothesis they want to validate, key success metric, you're building momentum. Now you're talking PRDs, wireframes, prototypes, user flows. You can draft that on FigJam or Lucid, right? Lucid maybe most likely, you can use it for anything, but I use Lucid for quite when it comes to architecture and diagramming of like systems diagram, just brainstorming again because it's not necessarily my work, but once you become involved in a technical conversation, you would not want to stop, and it just makes you a better PM and it builds a better product. So we are discussing architecture, database, um, yeah, and remember it's MVP. So don't build like the guys at Team Apps. They're not that. Even the guys at Team Apps, if they're building an MVP, I don't think they should act like they are Team Apps because they want to put it to the market fast, right? So remember what Eric Rice said and focus on the core user flow, not edge cases. And we're all guilty of this. So user signs up. But what if they forget their password? Okay, great. But what if they forget their password and they're not with their SIM? Okay, but what if they forget their SIM and they don't have their NIN with them to retrieve their SIM? You're going to build such a long, like, and this thing sounds very simple and silly because I wish again I structured these edge cases and I showed you very, very valid edge cases, but not needed at the point that they were being highlighted because you just kept on dragging what you were going to build. Build to just hope that users don't even forget their password, just so that they can scale, move past the onboarding because that's the first time they're probably going to test the product. So they're just setting their password at that point. But again, I'm not focused on password. I just want to paint a picture. Don't be so fixed on edge cases, right? And that's your flow just gets dragged. And then you're looking at wireframes. Wireframes, your MVP has like your Figma is already hanging because of the designs, the screens that have been built. Yeah, it's not the right approach. Now you're getting to halfway point, core functionality is taking shape. You're going to get to the point where you have to freeze, feature changes. I'll get there very soon. You're already testing. You're already testing. Very important. You're testing on Postman. Great. Again, developers test your code. So it's always very important for you to even say that. Don't even wait for the QA to do that, right? And don't wait for the final product. Yeah, like, oh, where's the, maybe it's been maybe the product on the UAT environment or dev or QA environment. You can test on Postman. But if you're not even a technical PM, just have conversations with the people that are meant to do the work, with the person. Remember, it's not a large team, right? So with the person. So you're testing things are coming into shape, and every week, remember your stand-ups are not ceremonies. You want to see progress. If you don't see progress in a week, just know that you are not building an MVP because building an MVP takes an insane level of focus because you want to, like I said, quickly put the product in front of your customers to say, is this working? Do you guys like this? You know, if not, let me go back and change. And then you start iterating. I know I missed one. Yes, sprint to launch. Please, at this point, orga-driven development, just fight it. But again, with wisdom, with caution, and with tact. At some point, you may have been like me and you fight it and find your way outside the company. That's happened to me. So it happens to the best of us, right? So yeah, I really like this is an MVP. No, we're stretching this, we're stretching that. Oga is actually the Oga for a reason, right? And he can just tell you, please exit the door. And that should not be the case. So everything has to be done with tax. Remember your product manager. So you guys are the best. We are the best at we should be the best at communicating, reading the room, and knowing how to stand on business and just take our foot off the pedal, right? So please, but it's very important. Feature freeze. At some point, you really have to just say we can't add any more feature. We can't add any more no more contextual information is important. Laser focus, just one way, right? Because in the end, what is the proof that all the brainstorming and all the multiple features, what guarantees its success? Nothing. So why not put it in front and quickly get feedback? Quickly. I don't like the happy people. I was just about to do this and it broke. I was just about to do this and I have to always go back to the beginning to impute. It makes more sense. But imagine you build something that already goes back to the beginning, but they prefer it to go back to the middle. So don't spend too much time on, you know, um, hypothesis, right? You drafted it at the beginning. Move fast. Okay, I think that thumbs up was nice. It was a way for me to even look at timing. So launch and validate. What are you doing? You've launched feedback, performance monitoring internally. Analytics is important. I mean, there's several Google Analytics. There are even too many right now. So I might not be able to. I'm trying to mention one. There's one I use a lot. Firebase. Firebase. Yeah. Well, still a Google. I think it's an Alphabet product, right? So, and then iteration planning. So this is where, as the feedback is coming, right? Your backlog refinement on Jira, you're like, okay, this is mixed panel. Thank you. Yeah. I was trying to remember that. Your backlog refinement, you start to do backlog refinement and you are really taking actions with the feedback and you're taking it back to the customers, the set of users making giving those feedback. I'll tell you, pro tip, as big as Paystack is, right, or Inside Gist, if anybody has used their product Zap, the way I've used it, you would have been contacted by someone on their team for user feedback. That's pay stack. Like that's pay stack. They're still running user feed. Like I was on a call with them with one of someone for 30 minutes 2 weeks ago. That's pay stack. Like do you get so that feedback loops is so important. And before that, they launched Zap months ago. That's the second time they're reaching out to me. So they probably reached out to me because I signed up early, and now they're reaching out because I'm using it a lot. I'm paying, I'm making payments through the app, and they want to understand, what can be done better. And they had several questions. If anyone wants to see the email, I can always forward it to you. If it helps you, draft something to like that and share it with your team as a justification. Part three, we're almost done. Key takeaways. Now, this key takeaways is my experience. I've been a freelance product manager, so which means I've been on several projects and I haven't necessarily 6 months, 1 year, 8 months. It could even be three projects at the same time, right? And the likes. So I might be talking from an agency point of view, right? But just imagine that I also understand what it is to be a 9 to 5 product manager because in the end, we're all product managers. But these takeaways are my experience. And I would like to just read through because I don't want to miss any. I think I really wrote this from it's an exhaustive list, but like let me write six of what I think comes to mind. And I'll start with number six. Factor regulatory timelines. Don't say that, oh, the blocker is that you haven't gotten lending license from the Ministry of Home Affairs. Before you get that lending license, it takes a number of takes a while. Takes a while. It took me 1 year to get mine for the digital lending product I built. But in that 1 year, I think they can give you there's a word for it, but I don't it's not interim, it's not there's a word for it, right? But again, you can use that to get some sub or verify me or any of these KYC verification companies in Nigeria to approve the compliance check with your company so that you can have them, help you in the KYC validation part. You need to think that way. So you don't just have, oh, users are going to do liveness check. Who will run the liveness check? Is it from your system? Are you building it internally? Clearly that can be an MVP if you're building it internally. So you want to quickly work with public, integrate a public API, right? And that's where compliance checks comes in. Yes, compliance takes time, but that's why you should also factor it as as a PM. We always say we translate business. How do we say it? Business goes to technical requirements and all those fancy, nice buzzwords. But this is where it comes in. The moment you know that this is the industry you're in, you should know the players. You should know how things work. You should actually be almost operational. And honestly, that's why I said you wear the art of business operations, product manager and product owner, you know. So regulatory timelines, they will affect your MVP, but you need to factor it and you need to be steps ahead of them. You need to be document your decisions, always write, never leave it to chance of I thought you would remember. Like I thought, always write. Like if you thought a certain way before you landed at a decision, write your thoughts. In my mind, I was thinking this, and I read a I'd read an Harvard Business Review communique that suggested this. I'd read in my McKinsey's always dropping, gems on their LinkedIn page for Africa and, all of like around the ecosystem, fintech, agriculture, any industry really, right? Just reference it, put the link, and just leave it. Honestly, you never know when you need it for yourself and also for the stakeholders that may want to just further investigate. And they're like, oh, okay, I see that you have your facts. Now, if they dispute the fact, of course, you just have to, again, argue with tact or concede, right? But it's just much better to document than to start searching at dime minutes when you need it. Number four, I already talked about it. Third-party API compliance access checks can take weeks. Regulatory research and execution should start months. Like I said, start months again, because it's not that when they start discussing with the product manager is when they tell you to start. Most likely they'll discuss with you for a number of weeks or days. Use those days wisely. Read the boring government communique. 2023, a lot of fintechs had to do a shuffle with their KYC. I did the same as well with the product I was in. They wanted you to start validating. If you don't pass the NIM BVN check, don't even give them tier one. Or, again, I'm just saying it's scatterly. I'm not, what's the word? It's not verbatim, right? But we had to factor a lot. I think Kuda at some point now start validating our house address, right? And things like that. It's because of that communique. So you want to always read those things. You want to build a digital lending for students. Read the education bill. Don't just assume that the government is not doing it. Yeah, Vivian Tier 1. Thank you, Sam. Right? Don't just assume that the government is not doing something. You want to actually understand. And that's why I put PESL in brackets. I know most of if you had the dive 2023, so by the way, please buy your tickets, dive 2025. If you had the dive 2023, I'm trying to remember the name, is in maybe Chief Product Officer Flutterwave. Try to remember his name. Yes, but yeah, maybe you can use that to search for him, right? He talked about personal analysis. And this is something that I know everybody knows, but we always think about these frameworks. For example, Moscow, oh, must have, could have, should have. And you just cram it or you know it and you don't actually practice it. You should actually do your personal analysis. You should. No matter how light, no matter how one pager it is, always do it because it will first of all help you know what you're about to get into. It would help you. You don't have to be a lawyer. You have friends that have just been called to bar. You have friends that are still in school. Talk to them. They can be your legal counsel in what are the confines. Okay, what if we do this and we do this and we do that, right? So please, these are also personal analysis is basics, but look at how it is coming in handy. Very very important. So I think I am done. Let me see. Yeah. Thank you for paying attention, and I hope I delivered some value. And please ask questions now. I know we're running out of time. So sorry for taking time. Thank you.
Thank
So,
you so much, Abayomi. I think that this is the time that we can take questions. So if there's really any questions from everyone on the call on
mhm.
MVPs, everything you've spoken about, now is a good time to ask. I'll give about 3 minutes, and once it's seven, if there are no questions, we'll just round up. Questions, questions.
Any questions? Any thoughts? I mean, it could be a remark. I'm open to that. You could, if you find anything,
Contributions.
yes,
Do you think we missed out on something?
something. The next speaker on the next, session will talk about it.
Okay.
If I come back, I'll talk about it too. You know. Okay, Lillian. Okay, yeah, me see.
Hey, good
Thank
evening,
you
sir.
so much.
Oh, maybe I'll go ahead.
Thank you so much, Abayomi. Sorry, unfortunately, I came a bit late because I was on another call, another meeting. So I just wanted to know if please we can get the recording so we can go over it again.
Yeah, me see. Good to have you. Abimbola, did you have a response for that? She wants to know if the recording can be, if there will be a recording put out.
Sorry, I was speaking muted. If you're on the community, I'm sure you get comms on how to get the video recordings of the session.
No.
All right. Let me see. You can go.
Okay. Just a quick one. Thank you very much for the lecture. It was an eye opener to me. And I want to ask about postman and the PM. Is the PM supposed to be the one doing that postman testing,
Not.
or except like technical product manager? Or I thought it was the tester. Is it quality assurance?
Mm-hmm.
So
So
not being able to do the postman, does that make me like does it make me incompetent as a PM?
Far from it. Far from it. There's so much value you can bring that you don't have to test. Sometimes with the work we do, you kind of have to like take a peek at what others are doing just to validate that they're doing what they say they're doing, right? So if, for example, you're on you sprints, your Jira board, to do, doing, done, deployed, PM tested, or QA tested, or peer review, however you structure it, and you just want to actually try out, you can actually now go on Postman. So it's a nice to have, not a must have. That's a good way to answer your question. But as you grow in as a PM and you become more technical, you would find that Postman is not necessarily something that you should run from. There are some basics that you can learn, and I promise you it's not difficult. So yes, go for it, but it doesn't make you less competent. Don't have that pressure. I did not use Postman for many years, and I was building
Mm.
products. Some many products on my CV don't even, I did not run any test on Postman. So yeah, don't let
Can
that
I?
affect you.
All right, thank you. Can I ask something a little outside what we've learned?
It's 7 o'clock. I hope Abimbola does not send me away. But is there any?
Can you
Grace
can
has a
you just
question.
do a quick one on what's this thing? Design. Oh, sorry, I've forgotten it. Like a
Do you mind?
design flow. Something.
Okay, do you mind noting your question down and honestly putting it on, searching for me on the Slack community or LinkedIn? I
Okay,
definitely would
okay,
answer you.
okay. Thank
I
you
see
very much.
someone else. Yeah, so write your question down. I promise to answer. I've
Thank you
not
very much.
I've not blown yet. I can always respond to DMs as fast as possible. Um,
Abayomi, you have blown. Oh.
someone's and Grace, are you raising your hand? I really want to answer questions or your thoughts. Like, but I know I took time. So is anyone else?
Yeah, we can still
Just to
take
comment.
questions. Grace, all right.
Okay,
Okay.
comments. That's good.
Yeah, thank you so much, Abayomi. You sound blown, so I think I will agree with Abimbola on that. Uh, okay. My question is related to, okay, yeah, you mentioned, or like we've come to know that the MVP is the minimum viable product, like with the core functionalities. But I've been in situations where we're trying to build out the core functionalities, but there is always this need to bring in edge cases, or the management wants something more, and it's just going to make the product bigger than an MVP. Like I've seen MVPs become an actual product, and like you are using, and like users are using an MVP as if it's an actual product. But coming as a PM, I know that this product is not fully ready. It doesn't even have the capacity that it ought to have based on everything possible. My question now is, how do I go about, you know, reminding management? Because I don't think they forgot. How do I go about reminding management, oh, this is actually an MVP and not the actual product, without start sounding like I'm trying to be, I don't know. I hope you actually get my question.
1,001%. Remember, I said the Oga-driven development one time has kicked me out of the door. Yeah, so you don't have to sound like I get the 1,001%. We're building something that's not an MVP in MVP time frame because they just kept on scope creep started coming in, and yeah, just expanding the MVP. As long as you have your hypothesis, right? So that product, so let's call it, say, a product document or a product one pager, problem statement, solution statement, our hypothesis, and target audience. I think always take that document. If you could get them to sign off on it at the beginning, just always try to remind them that we are trying to validate this hypothesis. It doesn't necessarily need XYZ features because we just want to validate the hypothesis has given you a barrier. Like that's the what's it? Is it barrier? Um, that's the max you should go. But by the time you start building more than beyond what you want to test, you're actually not going to even come back to that hypothesis. It becomes useless. So try to have that document and hope that they still listen, but do it with tact so that they don't tell you you should get out. So yeah, yeah. Try
A
to
quick
document.
one, sir.
Okay.
Do you launch your MVP like you're launching the full product?
Oh, you mean like markets, launch, PR,
Yes.
go to
How do
market
you launch
strategy?
the MVP?
Or you
Yes.
take it to, no, you don't do that. You take it. Well, again, case in point, depending on the company. Remember, I talked about this, right? Individual experts, new feature in existing products. Guys, if you open Piggyvest, there's a button in the middle. They've still not launched whatever they wanted to with that button. If you tap on it, I don't know if anyone uses Piggyvest. If you tap on it, they'll probably say new product coming or something. That thing has been there since I was using Piggyvest, right? So imagine that product went live. That definitely has to be an MVP, right? So would they do PR online and whatnot? Maybe, because Piggyvest has that community already that is quite, I mean, 5 million customers or what, right? Paystack launched, Zap is an MVP. That version is an MVP. And they launched it on YouTube, fanfare and all of that, right? So it depends on the company, the type of company, the stage the company is at, and the product itself. But if there's no existing product and they just want to take that to the market first, like Team Apt did with their first POS, they took it to that market in Aja, right? And they did not do PR. We didn't read it on the newspaper, so it depends. You either take it to your focus group, right? Your sample testers, that's really your focus group. You've already, which are your ideal target market, right? Or you do good PR to just, depending on the stage of your company. I think I've used real life examples just to answer. Yeah. Did that
Yeah,
help?
thank you very much. Yes, it did.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
last question before we go. Sam asks, he says, what part of your job do you enjoy the most and what phases do you find very challenging? And this is our last question before we round up for today.
What part do I enjoy the most? I think as PMs, we all enjoy seeing things come to life. That button working, that user flow journey, just as we desired, and users actually validating your hypothesis, or even if they give feedback, you work on it and you get, them to tell you they like the improvements and they become, your ambassadors, your, what do we call them again? The people that take your products to even others, they become your influencers without even paying them. So that journey is nice, is lovely. Product managers are like women. We give birth to things, so that's nice. What I don't like, man, is the pressure. So can kill. It's the pressure. It's the heartache. It's the problem. It's mastering communication every second, even if you're not in the mood, right? It's facing what Yemisi has faced, or is it grace, and being able to convince stakeholders to align with you, and being able to also be convinced. Please, being able to be convinced, having an eye for a second opinion or a second point of view. Yeah, so it's the pressure, it's the work, but the results is what we all love. So yeah, that's it.